Sundays have always been sacred to me. It gives me a chance to spend time with my family, with my friends, to focus on my faith. And honestly, We Rest on Sundays is a platform that I've created to help you navigate the complexities of the world. I want to spend time having open, honest dialogue with mentors, friends and family, and individuals that I truly believe are exceptional. We're going to focus on love, career, marriage, parenting, and everything in between. And the primary goal here is for us to become the better versions of ourselves every single day. I want to thank you for tuning in. I'll see you on Sunday. I'm super excited that you're recording with me today, Tevie.
Well, I'm like humbled and honored.
Yeah. Good. So Tevie, you are a Howard alum, graduate, pledge AKA, 4.0 GPA. You were the valedictorian of the School of Journalism. Started your career doing Teach for America.
Yes.
Worked for Deloitte, went to Harvard Business School. Now you're a director, worked for Korn Ferry. Now you're a director at Chick-fil-A. You're the mom of 2 beautiful black babies, boys, and married to your husband, John. So I'm super excited just to be here. A friend of mine, you were my Deloitte onboarding buddy as well.
Yeah.
Which is how we got connected, and through just, I think, Morehouse and Howard and mutual friends as well. Yeah. But really excited to learn more about Tevie and to speak more about just your journey. But can you tell me from your perspective, who is Tevie?
Who's Tevie? Tevie is a wife. You mentioned some of these things. Tevie's a wife, a mom, a stepmom, a career woman. I'm a friend, I'm a daughter, I'm a sister. I am a recovering perfectionist. I am a girl's girl. Yeah, that's who I am.
That's, I want to dive more into the recovering perfectionist aspect, right? Because I think anybody that hears your resume and hears more of like your story and all of the things, right? Even like going from being the valedictorian of the School of Journalism at Howard to going on to Harvard Business School, Korn Ferry, Teach for America. You're now sit on the board for Teach for America as well.
Metro Atlanta.
Of Metro Atlanta.
Yes.
How did you get to where you're currently at within your career, and how were you able to achieve some of these milestones from an educational standpoint and then also just from a career standpoint?
That's a good question. I don't think I've ever been at a place where I had like this list and this was the next thing I was like planning on doing. I think in the moment, sometimes it's hard to pinpoint what you're doing. In retrospect, I can look back and look through themes. So if you talk specifically about Howard and you say valedictorian or 4.0, right? I think half of it is just showing up, right? Go to class. You're supposed to go to class. Go every day. A lot of people won't go every day. If you go every day, you've already set yourself in a different league, right? And then when you show up, do your best. And I think that formula has been one that I have replicated throughout every opportunity. I don't know that everything that I have done has always been perfect, or at least in the moment it felt that way. But I do think that there is something that can be said about showing up and doing your best when you get there that gives folks comfort to take risks on you, that gives the permission to pivot, and gives the confidence that if you are to make a pivot, you're going to do those same things again. You're going to show up and try your hardest. And so, you know, I've been a kindergarten teacher, I've been a consultant, I've been a recruiter, I've been a lot of different things. And in isolation, they probably don't all fit nicely together.
Yeah.
But I think that doing that formula has given people the comfort of knowing that if I take this risk on her, she's going to try her hardest when she gets there.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's a little bit of it.
Yeah. Can you share more? That's really good. More of your upbringing as well. So maybe more of like your foundational years. And what I'm trying to get at is you know India and I. I think we are both type A people. I don't want to say perfectionists, but people that are type A typically tread very closely to striving to be perfectionists. And we're raising two little ones, just like you're raising two little ones right now as well. And I'm trying to figure out the people that are like this, right? Like, was it something from you know, like your youth or your childhood, or something that your parents instilled in you that really, you know, put you in a direction of like chasing excellence? And not just you, because your sister's also a pediatrician as well out in California. So it's clear that y'all have like really pursued excellence, and I'm just curious to know more about like your foundational years as well.
Well, I think I come from a lineage of very strong women. And you know, my grandmother was a single mom. My aunt, my mom, they both went to Spelman. My aunt is like a physics major, aeronautical double major from Spelman and Georgia Tech. My mom was a math major, just like really smart, strong women, okay? But they're also entrepreneurial. And so that also gives you a little bit of like, you're not gonna tell me no. I'm gonna hustle, I can do it. You can't, you know, I'm the best, you know? And so I think I was just always surrounded by women who were gonna figure it out. And I don't know that it was necessarily perfection that was expected. That probably was like my own personal thing that I probably have had to work throughout my life. But I do think that there was this standard of excellence that was just the expectation. My mother never asked me for my grades growing up.
Wow.
Ever. And I graduated high school with over 4.0. She never said, where's your homework? Did you do it? It was just an expectation that you were going to do what you were supposed to do. She's going to go to work, you're going to go to school, you're going to do the things. And my dad was there too, right? But I think in particular, it was the women in my life who really have laid that foundation of you just do whatever it takes. You just work hard. I don't have an example of anything else. And so I think that really instilled in me that as a woman, you can do anything that you put your mind to. I grew up here in Atlanta with my mom, and all her friends are really strong Spelman women, you know what those are like. And so that was just who I was surrounded with. I think that my father really also kind of instilled in me this, like, you're great as you are. You don't have to be anything to, you know, prove that I can love you. You know, I think that combined provided this foundation for me. But I, you know, looking back, I think there was some perfectionism in there, right? If you're always perfect, you can never be wrong. You kind of avoid the criticism. No one can, you know, pick it apart if it's nothing to pick apart, you know? And that is exhausting, and it's not sustainable, and it's not something that I want to instill in my kids. The excellent part, yes. The perfectionist part, no. You're spot on, right? And you're making me think, just because it's like, it is exhausting, you know? And so one, like, what are you doing to combat that currently? And two, what are you doing, and or how are you and your husband showing up to and for your kids to ensure that you aren't putting them in that mindset? Oh my gosh. You know, you don't know when you're doing it. I remember I taught kindergarten, I told you that. And I remember there was a student, and long story short, she's supposed to know the letters of the alphabet. She doesn't know the letters of the alphabet. So I'm talking to my teacher coach, and I'm like, she only knows 22 letters. I don't know why she does not know the other ones, but like, and she can't get these other letters, and I don't know what she's doing at home. And she's like, why are you focusing on the couple that she got wrong? Why don't you focus on the 22 she got right? And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm doing it. I am picking apart all of the things that are not right. It works in business sometimes. When you're a consultant, you can figure out like, oh, this is how we can make this thing better. But people don't like that in their real life. They don't like being picked apart for all of the things that they're doing wrong. And so I am aware that I can find it really quickly. I can find it. I can think it. But you don't always have to say what you think. And you have to recognize, is it gonna move the conversation forward? And so with my kids, I intentionally want them to be messy. I don't want them to come home perfect. I want them to try hard things. I want them to try to fail. I expect them to try hard. I expect them to ask for help. We don't say, I can't. You say no if you can't. If you don't think you can, you just ask for help. You don't have to get it right. You just ask for help. And so that's some of what I hope to instill in my kids, but also help shape them. I want them to be free. I don't want them to be so afraid of messing up that they're not going to try the next thing and try the hardest thing. So it's hard.
Yeah.
Who knows? We'll find out in 20 years.
Yeah.
We'll find out in 20 years what they're talking to their therapist about.
Right, literally, that's what we talk about all the time, and what I think about all the time as well, because it's you just want the best for your kids.
Yeah.
And what I always say, and I don't even know if it's right, wrong, or indifferent, right? Like, I want my kids to find their happiness, and then I want to help them pursue whatever that it may be, right? Like, and I honestly don't want my kids to be wired how I'm wired, because it is exhausting, and it's like, it's tiring. I want them to just be, and I'm very happy. Like, I'm happy with how I show up and what I do, but I don't want them to feel like they have to be wired like me and or like India either, because I think we both are very type A and disciplined people at times, and I want all the things that you just shared, as well. But can we talk a little bit more about your career? And because you've had some really cool pivots in your career, from being a teacher, right, to being a consultant at Deloitte, to working at Korn Ferry, being a recruiter, to how many different roles have you had at Chick-fil-A corporate? Three. You're in your third now, or your fourth?
I'm in my third, but they all evolve, so it's probably like the 15th one, but technically the third, yes.
Yeah. So like, how have you had the confidence and really the confidence to make those pivots and or to know like what's next?
I don't know that I've always had the confidence to do it, but sometimes you just do it scared, right? So I was a journalism major. I wanted to report the news. All of my internships were in TV, radio. I had an offer to go work at Ogilvy in New York doing PR. And I had heard about this thing called Teach for America. I knew a couple of folks who had done it, and I wanted to impact people. I wanted to impact the world. But also, from a career perspective, I can tell you all the things and the reasons why and the impact of that. But if you talk about solely from a career perspective, I think I've always pursued the most unique thing next, right? I was like, I can probably go back to this other thing, but let me go get this one experience that I probably want. I'll get back to that. And then the next thing came, and it was like, I could probably get back to that other thing, but let me try the next thing that's the next new thing, the next different thing. And I think my career has been a series of saying yes to the most unique next step. I like that. I like the new and different. My husband says it's because I don't like rules, and I want to just always do something different. But I think pivoting from journalism to the classroom was an example of that. It's a 2-year commitment, I knew I was not going to stay in the classroom.
Oh, wow. Before going into it, or once you got in?
Both.
Wow.
Both. A lot of respect for teachers.
Yeah.
It was a hard job. And I think that there were probably better teachers than I was, but I tried really hard.
Yeah.
And I actually ran into one of my students at the mall a couple of weeks ago, and then we ended up getting lunch.
Wow.
And so, very impactful, but I taught, and the 2-year commitment was over, but I still felt like I had more to give.
Got it.
And so when I was coming out of the classroom, I started interviewing for other jobs, but it didn't feel right. So I stopped a few interview processes and was like, you know what, this is not what I want to do next. I want to stay within education. And I ended up joining staff at Teach for America.
Got it.
So I joined staff as a recruiter, not because I knew anything about being a recruiter. I just wanted to tell more people about educational inequity. If I can tell you about this concept and this idea that if you grow up in a low-income area in this country, it sometimes limits you because of your opportunities, and it shouldn't. I can do that as a recruiter. That's how the talent thing picked up. It wasn't because I had this written out path that I was going to go and do this talent thing next.
Yeah.
So I go to Teach for America on staff as a recruiter. I had a manager who had gone to business school. She had gone to Howard, she went to Stanford for business school, and I just thought she was excellent. She was so great, and I just wanted to be like her. I didn't know the first thing about business school. All my friends work in New York in magazines, okay? I was a journalism major. And so I just wanted to be like her. And that is the truth of it. I knew I wanted to get an advanced degree. I didn't think I wanted it to be in education because in some other part of, as I've evolved my career, I've really liked, I kind of don't like to be pigeonholed. So I felt like an MBA was broad enough that I could figure it out. Right? So I'm like, okay, she has an MBA, this Black woman, she's bright, she's smart, she went to Stanford, she's all these things, and she's an excellent manager, and she sees me, and I see myself in her. I should just apply and see what happens, okay? So I applied to all of these business schools. I got rejected from every single business school I applied to except for Harvard.
No way.
Every single business school I applied to.
How many schools did you apply to?
6 or 7. NYU, Stanford, Yale, USC, Emory.
And you only got into Harvard?
And I only got into Harvard.
I never knew that. That's a heck of a piece of your story.
Yeah, it is. And it shaped a lot of who I am because I felt very rejected in it.
For the first time in your life?
For the first time. I was like, you do these perfect things, and you do this thing, and you're gonna, and I didn't get in. And some of it now, my scores weren't that great.
Yeah.
My GMAT was not great. My essays probably were great, but my GMAT was not. And so I remember I got the phone call. I had gotten all the rejections, and so I just knew I wasn't getting into Harvard. So I was on a work call with said manager, and you know how you're like multitasking. So we're on a call, and I happened to look at my email, and I was like, they said I could come. They said I got in, and she was like, get off the phone with me. Go celebrate. So I left and went and got a margarita, and but I think imposter syndrome set in for sure because I'm like, it must have been a fluke. Now, outside looking in, you're probably like, the admissions team they didn't make a mistake.
Yeah, not at Harvard.
They didn't make a mistake. And then you tell yourself the story, it's like, well, they probably only let you in because you wouldn't damage their reputation. It's strong enough that even if and so I had to work through a lot of that. I had to work through a lot of that. And then I got to school, and now you're with all of these folks. You're in this finance class, and there's no grades. It's just like the contribution of your comment in the case study. Well, I don't even know what you're talking about, okay? Because I taught kindergarten and was a recruiter and a journalism major, and we were not talking about this merger and acquisition, okay, that you were doing on Wall Street. And so that was hard. It was hard. It was hard. So then that summer, I applied to all of these internships. I want to say I applied to 60-something internships, and I only remember that because I just remember because I got 60-something rejections.
Jeez.
And that was hard, but guess what? It only takes one. It only takes one. It only takes one yes. And so even Deloitte, I applied for a summer internship and I was told no.
Wow.
But I applied for full-time the next summer. And so I think some of it's, again, you show up, you don't give up. And I think that has shaped me. I think God was preparing me for, now you could tell me no and I'd be like, thank you for just narrowing my path.
Yeah,
I was about to get off track.
Yeah.
So anyway, I went to Teach for America. I went to work as a recruiter. I went to business school with this thought now that I'm going to open a nonprofit. I'm going to do something community focused. And my roommate says, Tevie, you need some skills. I'm like, I have skills. I taught kindergarten in the hood with no pencils, okay? I can do a lot. She's like, no, you should go talk to some consulting companies. This one happens to be on campus. And I remember going and saying, I don't want to do spreadsheets and numbers. And they said, oh, we do way more than that. And that's how I ended up going into human capital consulting. It's like, oh, you've been a teacher, you've been a recruiter, you can help companies think about their talent strategy and their people strategy and their human capital element of what it takes to do great business. And that's how I ended up going to Deloitte from there.
Yeah. Man, what a great, I think, like, aspect of your story, because I think anybody that's looking at you on paper or looking at your LinkedIn profile, right, like, they're gonna see, like, perfection. Like, they're like, man, like, all of these things, but they don't hear the rejection in that. They don't hear the imposter syndrome, right? And I do want to take it a click down into the imposter syndrome piece, because for me, it's something that I still battle with, if I'm being honest with you, every day. And I'm curious to see where it lands with you. And on my end, it's like slightly different than your story, your upbringing. It's like, since my father was in prison, my mom was addicted to drugs, it was like, now I sit in these rooms and I've consulted to executives. I now sit in these rooms where I'm consulting to owner operators of businesses, where I'm in any room and I'm able to lead strategy or come up. And there's no room that I sit in, especially from a corporate work standpoint, where a little of me is not like, you don't belong. Like, are you gonna get sniffed out? So I'm wondering, since you touched on imposter syndrome, like, do you have any of that still? Or are you like, I'm over that hill, Ben, like, I'm just gonna go and do my thing? And if you are, great, how did you get there?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
I'm absolutely not over that hill. I think it often. I think it used to consume me more. It could be paralyzing.
Yep.
Now I have it, but I have more data to show that it's probably not real.
Yeah.
So, you know, and also I have my husband. I'm like, John, let me tell you what I said, and tell me what they said, and this is, and he is very affirming often, but I have it, and you know, but I think you again learn to do it scared. You get comfortable with being uncomfortable, and you have people around you that help you decipher your thoughts at times.
Yeah.
But I don't know that you could sit up here and just be like, oh, I never have that. I'm confident all the time. And sometimes you just have to fake it, okay?
Yeah.
Sometimes faking the part, looking the part, acting the part is half of the battle. And sometimes people should have some, well, anyway.
Humility.
Yeah.
That's it's funny, because the fake it till you make it part is so real as well, because you know, like I think it was Amy Cuddy that years ago spoke about, like, standing in front of the mirror and, like, doing a Superman or Superwoman pose, and from time to time, like, I find myself still doing that,
taking up space before the meeting, breathing in deeply. Yeah.
Like, it sets you, I don't know, it triggers something in your mind that helps you realize, like, it's all good.
Yeah.
You're safe. And, like, you're supposed to be here. You know, like, I have these experiences. I am educated, right? Like, I've done the work as well. So that's really good. Can you talk a little bit more, share a little bit more, whatever you're willing to share, just about how faith has really impacted your journey and where you're currently positioned with faith in your life?
Yeah. I think that faith is, I've grew up in the church. I've always had faith. I've always been a church goer, you know, that sort of thing. I think I have seen God move in my life in ways that gives me confidence that He'll do it again. I have enough faith to know that it always changes and it always evolves. And if it's really hard and if it's not right, He's not finished. And so I have confidence to know that it's going to continue to evolve. Even the great things will continue to evolve, because if you have enough breath, you're still living, He's not done, right? And so I think that faith has given me sometimes even confidence that it's not about this, it's about something greater. And yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Can you talk more about, and one thing that I think the reason why it's easy to stay connected with you and be friends with you is because with India, like being a working mom as well, and like navigating a daunting career and being at the director level, I don't care where you work, is a daunting career as well. And then having kids at home and having a husband at home that also has a demanding career. How are you balancing all of those things? And then also, what advice would you give to the couple that's maybe on the fence with like having kids right now because they're like, oh, we have all these things or goals and aspirations from a career standpoint that we want to focus on? What advice would you give to them?
Well, balance is hard. It's hard. It is hard, period. It is hard. I think having a partner is huge. I do not do it alone. I don't do it alone. I have a really strong partner in John. He's a great dad, and we really do look at our life as partners, whether it is who's going to pick up the kid or who's going to cook the dinner or who's going to drive. Typically there's that 4:30 phone call and I'm like, are you picking up the kids or who's doing dinner? You know, it goes both ways. So I don't think that you can do it all without help. Whether that means you have help at work or you ask your coworker or you ask a friend or you have a babysitter or you have a grandparent or you have, I don't know, but whatever it is, you're not on this journey by yourself. And I think that is really important to remember because you cannot do it all by yourself. And it is hard to balance. And so you've got to figure out what ball you're going to drop. I can't remember the book. I think it's called Drop the Ball, but they talk about sometimes you are going to drop a ball. Just make sure the one that you drop is not the one that's going to shatter. And I cannot say that every single day I'm juggling all the balls well. But when I drop the ball, it's not the one that is the most, detrimental. Typically, I try to avoid that. I think you also have to just recognize that your pace is always going to look differently. Someone might be like, "Oh, Tevie, you're going at such a strong pace. You're running so hard." I will tell you, this is not the pace I used to run at. You have to run your own race. You know how you get in yoga, and I don't know if you've gone to yoga, and the instructor says, "Worry about your own mat." It's when you start to look at everyone else's mat and everyone else's pace and all the things, that's where you start to get a little bit...
You lose your balance.
Yeah, you lose your balance. And I just have to say again, do the best I can do. Okay, last week, had a really big meeting. I was really nervous. And I needed to get some sleep. Do you think I got sleep? No. Because I had a 4-year-old who woke up twice in the night to use the bathroom. So then at 5 in the morning, I was up changing sheets, all the things, because he wet the bed. And my race might not look like my coworker's race who maybe got 8 hours of sleep that night, right? And so you have to get comfortable with the fact that your race is not always going to look like everyone else's race, and you have to be intentional about which sacrifices you're willing to make on that journey. And so I wouldn't say don't do it. I recommend it. I recommend it, but it is hard, and you've got to figure out how you're going to navigate it well and what is most important to you in it all. My team knows I eat dinner with my kids. Now, we're not always sitting at the table. Sometimes they're at their table and I'm at the counter and all those sorts of things, but I do not want to be talking to anybody at work, typically between 5:30 and 7. Because my kids go to school and then I get home and then they go to bed and I have no time with them. I am resentful if I'm on the phone with you when I want to be with my kids. And so that is something that's true to me, but it's also a sacrifice at times. There are things that I didn't get done. There are conversations that I probably missed. But that is important to me. I don't want my kids to look back and be like, she was too busy or she was always working or she was never present. That is not the story that I want to be true. And I think that I've at times made sacrifices because of what I have found to be important or how I'm trying to balance it all.
Tevie, you, the 5:30 to 7 is such I think a jewel to share because like it's like a rule of thumb that I think we try to practice in our household as well, where it's like all right, 5:37, we need to stay committed to these kids and try to have dinner, even if they're eating dinner and we're just watching them eat awkwardly, like we're just around
and
them.
we're going to Uber Eats at 8:30 because we didn't want to eat chicken fingers and fries.
You got it, exactly, exactly, right? Like that's, I don't know, it's a practice that that I'm grateful to hear another household and family actually implementing and doing. Because again, I'll speak for myself, a little me has worried where I'm like, oh, if I don't take this call, like, is this going to be like, will this hurt my career? Will it damage my career? And then it's like, no, it
probably not.
Probably not. And if it does, then I'm not at the right place.
Exactly.
Or I'm not working for the right team, or I'm not supporting the right individual.
Right.
You know, so it's refreshing to hear that and, you know, hear that perspective. I feel like you were about to add on.
Well, no, I mean, it doesn't mean that we don't log on sometimes in the evening. I also think that I've tried to be much better about not working all the time. I don't actually want to.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't want to. You know?
Yeah.
Sometimes I want to watch junk reality TV and do nothing, okay? Or scroll Instagram or not open back up a computer. And more times than not, I'm not logging back on.
Yeah.
But sometimes you do. But you also have to get comfortable with not doing everything yourself.
Yeah. Yep.
At home and at work, so that can enable that.
Yeah, that's good. What advice would you give to young Black, brown professionals that are striving to live and have successful careers in corporate America?
Sometimes you will be the only one. Do it scared. I tell a lot of women we talk, I think sometimes we spend so much time before you get there in the morning thinking of all of these things. What ifs? How am I going to show up? How am I going to do my hair? What am I going to wear? If I say it like this, are they going to think this? It is there are a lot of mental gymnastics that we're doing before we even get there. As much as you can, stop. Because it takes up the space for the other things, right? And so how do you get to a place where you are intentionally quieting those thoughts? Maybe it's you have a therapist, maybe you have a friend. I have a lot of other professional women friends, and we talk, and they are navigating the same things. If you see another Black woman, she probably has some experience at work that she has yet to find the words to put to it, you know, but knowing that you're not crazy and knowing that it's real and finding outlets for that, I think is important. But I will say, as you're thinking about navigating what's next, do it scared. Know that you might be the only one, but you don't have to be the last. And be authentic. I think I told my team last week, they said, I started a new role, a new team, and they said, who are you? What's your leadership style? And there were 3 things. I said, authenticity, collaboration, and excellence. Those are the 3 things. Authenticity, because your voice matters.
Yeah.
Your background, your experiences, the way you look, all of those things help shape the perspective in the conversation. And if you are not going to be able to be authentically you can't give that perspective and that nuance and that diverse thought to the conversation. So that's super critical. And knowing that, and sometimes you are the only one in the room, and sometimes you are the only one in the role, and sometimes you are the only one at the company. But there is value in that experience. And so instead of teasing through your mind why you shouldn't be there or what, you know, you're coming into the room with, know that authenticity and that diversity of thought matters. I think collaboration, I just probably am overly collaborative, you know. I like collaboration, but I also think, going back to that whole Harvard experience and not always feeling, I think I've gotten really good at knowing what I bring and also knowing what I don't bring. Okay? And I used to think I had to do it all. First of all, you can't. And second of all, I don't want to anymore. Right? And so I think collaboration is super important. And then excellence, I think that speaks for itself. Do the best with what you have in the moment, on your race, even if you only got 2 hours of sleep, because that's all you could get. Whatever your best is for that day, for that moment, I think that's important. And so I would say that.
Yeah, it's good. It's really, really good advice. And I think I'm still in the season of, and I'm trying, so however you can help me, you know, as time goes on, of getting over that hurdle of like feeling like you can do it all. especially from a work standpoint,
Yeah.
you know, and like I'm similar to you in a new space, new role, and it's like wanting to earn your seat. I'm like, the seat is already
But you
earned.
already
Yeah.
have the seat.
Yeah.
You already have the seat.
Yep.
And so that is that's that mental gymnastics.
Yeah. Yep.
And so you're trying to prove that you belong there and you're already there.
Yeah.
I've even thought that sometimes, you know, you get the role or you get the title, and sometimes LinkedIn will remind you, right? You're like, man, I've been trying to earn this seat and I've already been in this seat for 6 months.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
So it's not easy by any means, but you're already there.
Yeah. Yep. That's good, Tevie. So how are you defining success at this point in your career for you?
Success for me means having integrity. It means aligning my actions, my thoughts, and my words. Doing that well, regardless of what's going on around me, is important. I think success for me means, not to say that career is not important, because it is. I want to have a thriving career.
Yeah.
I want to continue to grow. I want to continue to learn new things. I think success is having kids who are grounded,
Yeah.
who are kind, who are generous, who are grateful. That's success. I think, you know, and sometimes financial success is great. Like, I like getting the extra oat milk in my latte, you know?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's more than oat milk that I like, you know?
Yeah.
But that's great too. But I don't think I define success by a title.
Yeah. Yep.
And I think that as I've evolved and as I've grown, I think success is much more inward. It's not in comparison to the next person.
Yeah.
You know, when you go on social media, it's very easy to compare.
Yeah.
I realize I'm not really comparing myself to others until I get on, you know, in certain environments, right? And so when I find myself in places where I am comparing myself to others, being mindful of that and not going there.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
I think success is an individual journey of how do I be my best self so that when I'm not here, that is the legacy that I leave, and that's the part that stays behind.
Yeah.
I do think that if you had asked me, and I still think that, you know, someone helped me, success is what you do for yourself, significance is what you do for others. And I want to lead a significant life. I want to lead a life that impacts others. And I think that, you know, someone said, what's your defining moment of your career? Not going to pursue X and going to impact kids. Like, that is a defining moment of who I am, ultimately. Because I could have done other things, but I didn't want to. And so I do find that some ways success and significance are kind of interwoven.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really, I think, like, helpful and informative to hear you share that, because I think it's very easy to get caught up in the comparison game. It just is, right? Like, especially when you feel like you're smart. You're like, I'm smart, I'm capable.
I can do it better than them.
But it's a dangerous game, you know, because I think comparison, I really believe comparison is the thief of joy. Like, I truly believe that to my core. And I am happiest when I am grounded. And like, Ben being his authentic self, Ben living in his truth, and Ben living in his purpose every single day. And it took me a long time. I mean, there are things that I cringe about myself in college, like things that I said or did, and it was like all ego and insecurities that were exuding from my, you know, my body. And I don't know, now being in, you know, soon to be late 30s, it's like it forces you to look at the world differently. So that's really, really good. You hit on legacy. Just really one more quick question for you. Would love to hear, like, what do you want your legacy to be? What do you want to be true for your kids and then also for Tevie, you know, in the next 20 years?
Such a great question. I think in a lot of ways, and it sounds cliche, I think my kids are my legacy. I think you can tell a lot about a person by watching their children. And I want, when people just see my kids, to say they were so loved, they were so sure of their place in this world, they had strong faith, they care, they're kind. I want them to be the truest reflection of all of the best parts of me.
Yeah.
I want to be authentic. And that does not mean that I have X title at X company. It doesn't mean that that's the last title I'll ever have, but authentically me. I don't think that when we're 80 or 90 years old, we're going to be talking about that one title that anyone had.
Yeah.
And so I'm very aware that this is the season that we are in, and it will continue to evolve. And so I want to make sure that as I'm thinking about the next chapter, the 20 years from now, the 30 years from now, that I am remembered for leveraging this time to impact those around me, to become a better person, to take all the things that help make me great and all the things that are hard to make me even better.
Yeah.
And someone who's remembered for, you know, doing hard things.
Yeah. That's good, really good. And I know I said that was the last question, but I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about, can you talk a little bit more about the importance of HBCUs from your experience, and then maybe a little bit more about even just like sorority life and the beauty that you had in your experience of pledging to sorority at Howard?
Yeah. I think that when I got to Howard, I felt like I could breathe. I just felt like I could breathe, like I could just be me. I didn't have to be the black girl. I didn't have to be I was just Tevie.
Yeah.
And I learned more about diversity at an HBCU than in any other environment that I have ever been in, because it's like the one place where you can actually remove race as a differentiator. So it's like the next greatest country star, or the next rock band, or the gospel artist, or this political party, that political party. All of those things exist, right? And race is removed in some ways, right? I think in a lot of other places, we look at diversity as racial diversity. And at Howard, I was able to learn that it's not just about that. Now, I grew up in a place where I was always the only one, or one of a few. And so I just felt like I saw myself, I saw my life, I saw my story in so many other people, and that was so refreshing.
Yeah.
It's hard to articulate, but when you get there and you feel it,
Yeah.
that's why you're smiling,
Yeah.
because you know what I mean.
Yes.
I could just exhale. And then sorority, so my mother's an AKA, my aunt's an AKA, but I don't even know that I grew up saying I want to be like them in particular, but again, I do think that they had this aura, and they had this excellence, and they had this grit and this desire and this beauty that is very admirable. But then when I got to Howard, Miss Howard was an AKA. The ladies who moved me into the dorm were AKAs. The other valedictorian before me was, you know, and so I just saw so many women that I wanted to be like in that sorority.
Yeah.
Now, we have a lot of fabulous women at Howard, and so no knock to the others, but that's where I saw myself. And the beauty of sisterhood without competition is magical. I'm not saying that women don't have spats and things like that, but there is something about sisterhood. I have sisters, you know. There is something about sisterhood that transcends that. And I think that was something that I just am so honored and grateful that I've had that experience, and that even my best friends today that I met at Howard are my line sisters. Yeah.
Yep. It's God, that's such a powerful comment. I felt like I could breathe comment, because that's exactly how I felt when I got to Morehouse.
Yeah.
I'm also, while we didn't come from much financially, I was in a very Caucasian suburb and my entire life and my upbringing. And then when I got to Morehouse, I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like, what is this? Like, it felt like a hug, like a warm hug.
A hug.
You know?
Yes.
And I've never felt more safe in my life. I never felt more confident in my life. I never felt like I could conquer the world more in my own life than by being in an HBCU. And it's not only a Howard or a Morehouse thing. I've been to many HBCU campuses, and just went to Tuskegee's homecoming for the first time this past fall, and it felt like a warm hug.
Yeah.
So I'm happy that I asked that question. I'm happy that you have the same shared experience. But Tevie, thank you for just your time. Thank you for being willing to come and sit down and have this conversation with me. I think you're exceptional. And the story that you told earlier in the interview, where you spoke about a previous mentor, that was that woman for you, right? That went to Stanford to get her MBA. You were that woman for many, many people that are coming behind you. There are people that I've introduced you to intentionally, because I'm like, I know she's going to serve in that space. So I hope that you see, how exceptional you are, and
Thank you.
how you're impacting individuals' lives, including mine as well. I think, again, you continue to strive for excellence, what seems like in effortless ways, and it helps me continue to go after my goals as well. So thanks for being a friend. Thanks for saying yes to coming on We Rest on Sundays, and anything I can do to help you or your family, I'm always here to help and support you guys.
Thank you, Ben.
My pleasure.